despite the bad news, that was actually a wonderful expedition. I got a chance to go diving and free diving with killer whales one-on-one, and they definitely don't deserve the reputation that they have. Being able to see in the eye of an orca at less than 2 meters is an amazing experience, and a humbling one, of course, because that animal can very easily dispatch me or anybody else if they wanted to, and yet there's not been one recorded incidence in the wild of that happening. Anyway, onto a very funny picture I have here that I found in Popular Science recently, and the caption is "Triage Biologist." Now, I grew up with biologists. I grew up with the oceans and going up rivers and all these sorts of things, and some of my best friends are scientists. I have never heard of a triage biologist. Have you? Well, its name is exactly what it is. It's a scientist that has to make the decisions on which animals are worthy of keeping and which ones we must let go of. That's astounding to me. I was never brought up to think that way. I find an irony in this picture because it shouldn't be the scientist deciding on the animal's fate. It should be something that we should be paying attention to, which is our planet deciding on our fate because of our actions or inactions. Every 10 minutes, one distinct species disappears on this planet. When are we going to disappear? We should really be watching the clock on that one. Everything is connected, as I stated. The United Nations estimates that more than 4 billion people living in water-stressed areas and water-scarce areas will be around in 2050. Some of us may be here, some of us won't. But our children will, and our children's children will, and they're going to be suffering. That means that by 2050, only 60% of the world population will have sufficient access to clean drinking water. And that's according to Robert Engelman of Earth 3.0. We are using, as I said, this planet as an endless resource in a garbage dump. And with that near 1.5% of the planet's fresh water ready to us and drinkable, we're both robbing ourselves and poisoning our future. This is actually the philosophy I grew up with. People protect what they love. Sounds very simple and straightforward, but it holds true. And it's not too late to change the course that we have set for ourselves. You may hear a little frustration and anger in my voice because we've been saying this, well, my grandfather since the 60s, really. And now we're 3 generations or 2 generations later, and I'm still saying the same thing we were saying 30 plus years ago. It's frustrating. We must get off our butts and do something. If not for the sake of the animals, for the sake of our own fellow beings. I'm going to go a little faster because I want to show you a little treat at the end. You deserve it after all the punishment. I have something in my pocket that I wanted to show you. Can you see this? Anyone see this? Well, this, I couldn't find a watch battery, but I did have a cell phone battery. This little cell phone battery, which pretty much everyone has in their pockets these days, is enough, has enough toxic materials in here to poison the whole water supply for everybody in this room for the entire day. We need to be able to dispose of these things in proper ways. Some countries do better than others with that. Our household pesticides, you know those traditional pesticides you spray all over the place to try and kill the weeds and bugs and everything else? Those create the health problems that I just spoke of. There are are botanical alternatives for that. And they break down the less toxic or non-toxic substances on the way down the waste stream. And for the sake of your pets and children, that's a good thing. Fabric softeners, same thing. No, I never thought of fabric softeners as being poisonous, but they contain things that are carcinogenic and toxic, like ethanol, benzenol, and chloroform. As a matter of fact, I think chloroform is still legal over the counter in France. Makeup, that's a good one. Some skin exfoliants now use plastic grains instead of the organics like the ground apricot pits. Those plastic grains, as you know from the Nurdle story, are really not good for us. And more importantly, not good for downstream. Because they enter this food chain and they end up in the salmon, and then we eat the salmon, and then here we go, we start glowing in the dark. The lipstick sometimes contains lead, and so on and so forth. So, with that said, I won't torture you with the mascaras and everything else. We must manage our resources like a bank account. You know, we have to stop eating away this capital and start living on the interest. There is no bailout like we saw in the United States. Once the account is empty, the doors are closed and the vacancy sign is placed where the last footprint of our species is. This is our one and only life support system. It is time for each one of us to shed our bad habits that now threaten to take away everything we love and depend on. You, all of you, you are not the audience. You are the ambassadors to an audience that is not with us here today. Please carry the messages that you heard today and make them understand why we should care. It is time to stop living on this planet and start living with this planet. This journey won't be easy, but it's definitely worth it if we have a future worth all of its priceless gifts. It is a much better thing to learn to dance nature's waltz than to try and change the music. And with this said, I would like to share one last thing, which is only going to take a couple of minutes, but it's one of my favorite experiences in recent history, and that is called the Humpback Ballet. Thank you.